Hey guys, Anthony of the Rag Company, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to clean and restore plastic fender liners back to OEM perfection. Let's jump into it. Alright guys, so you could have a very detailed car, meaning that you could have the cleanest of paint, the cleanest of wheels, the cleanest of headlights, but if your fender liners are dirty and the sun hits them in that perfect way, then that car just doesn't look right. Now in the case of this car behind me, the fender liners are extremely faded. They have stains on them from God knows what, and I don't think that these things have ever been detailed. So what I want to do today is walk you through the steps on how to deep clean a fender liner, then also how to protect it using a couple different products. So to start off for this job, we're going to be breaking out the steamer. Now I understand not everybody is going to have a steamer, and that's totally fine. You can use a hose, you can use a pressure washer in place of that, but since we're in the studio, we're gonna be using a steamer, as well as a Detail Factory tire brush. Now the reason why I like to use this brush is because it's got enough stiffness, but also enough give to be able to get into the nooks and crannies, but also provide a very deep clean. Now, following that, we're gonna be steaming it one more time, rinsing off all that Green Star, and then jumping into our prep stage. I got a little bit of IPA here to be able to clean off any residue or any oil left over to prep it for the protection. Now for protection, we have a couple different options, and I'll explain each of them a little bit more in depth as I'm doing them, but what I have here is Solution Finish, which is an industry standard, and I've used this to restore countless different fender liners, and it's absolutely fantastic. And then as a comparison on a different fender liner on the car, we're gonna be using Gtechniq C4, which is gonna be a coating. This is going to darken the look, but also provide some protection as well as hydrophobic properties. And then lastly, we have Koch Chemie PSS, also known as Plast Star. This is probably the most insane dressing that I've ever used right out of the bottle. It's going to dress it, it's going to protect it. It's not gonna last as long as some of these other ones, but it's going to look pretty damn good. Now, before we jump into this, I know that not everyone is going to have a fancy lift in a shop or a garage that they can utilize to do this, and I totally get that. So this is something that you can also do with a jack and a jack stand, and simply take one wheel off at a time and then knock out the liner. Or if you don't feel comfortable with a jack stand, lift, or anything like that, you can simply park the car on a flat surface and turn the wheel all the way to the left or all the way to the right to give yourself some access to the fender liner. So there's a lot to cover today, but I'm excited to see the outcome because I think that these are gonna look absolutely mint once we are done with them. So let's jump into it. All right, so jumping straight into this, I have my handy dandy steamer. Again, if you don't have a steamer, you can still use a hose and you can use a pressure washer, and we're gonna do the same process here. I'm gonna start steaming from top to bottom here, rinsing off as much of this gunk as I can.
Six and a half hours later.
All right, so we use the steam to get a lot of that grit and grime off of there. Again, these things are absolutely hammered, so I'm hoping to see a beautiful restoration here. So from here, we have the Koch Chemie Green Star at full strength. Now for this, I'm gonna start from the top again, start spritzing it on here. And I think that this is going to do a lot of the work along with the brush for agitation. And at this time, if you want to, since you're already probably working hard and this is already a messy job, you might as well clean your suspension as well, if you want to do that, because we're in here. Why not? All right, so we're gonna let that dwell for just a minute or two, let it really start working and pulling everything that was really ingrained in that plastic downward. Then from here, we're gonna grab our Detail Factory brush, and again, spray a little bit more Green Star into this brush to help build up a lather. And I really like this brush because, again, it's got a little bit of pliability to it, but it's got good scrubbing power. Using something like a boar's hair brush or using something like an ultra soft brush is not gonna have the strength or power to be able to scrub this as much as it needs. So this brush really is ideal. And you can see how much dirt is starting to become agitated there. We're lifting a lot of that out of the plastic itself. All right, so I put quite a bit of elbow grease into this front driver's side fender liner. This thing was absolutely hammered. I knew it was dirty, but I didn't know it was this dirty. And so a lot of stuff is running off on the lift into this trash can, not onto the trash can, it's kind of everywhere. So at this point in time, we're gonna be using the steamer to rinse everything. In my opinion, I think that this is dirty enough to where I'd break out a hose or a pressure washer, honestly. But the steam cleaner is what we got, so this is what we're gonna use. I might take a little bit more water in a spray bottle and kind of spritz it, and then after this, we're gonna be drying everything off. But this thing is absolutely nasty. So move my trash can over here to catch everything and start steaming. All right, so we just got done rinsing everything off, and so at this point in time, I'm just going to dry it and then show you what it looks like with just a clean surface, a non-dressed surface. I think it's gonna look a lot better, but it's not gonna have that deep, dark look that we're going for until we actually put some protection on it. So I'm going to dry this, show you what it looks like, and then I'm gonna knock out all other 3 corners of this car. It's gonna be a lot of work, but it's gonna be worth it. And then from there, we'll jump into the protection steps and compare each of those 3 products that I told you before. So let's get it done. All right, so now that we've knocked out all 4 corners and put a ton of elbow grease into them, I would say that these are looking pretty damn good already, and they're just gonna look better with a little bit of solution finish, as well as some of the other dressings and coatings. My plan is that we are going to be using solution finish on the front driver side, we're gonna be using PSS on the front passenger side, where you'll be using Gtechniq C4 on the rear there. I'm gonna explain why you would use each one for each maybe situation that you are in before doing this. So anyways, for this, to prep everything up for the solution finish, I have a little bit of IPA here at 70%, cut 1-to-1 with distilled water. That's about all you need, as well as an Edgeless 365. Gonna spray some of this into my towel here, as well as onto the fender liner itself. And this is going to prep it to accept the solution finish. And I can't emphasize enough how much the APC and scrubbing is going to make a difference in this process. A lot of people will just dress a fender liner without any preparation work, and it may look good temporarily, but in about a day or 2 or after a heavy rain, all that is gone and you're back to square one. So prep is key with restoring plastics such as these. So I got my IPA on there, got my 365, and I'm just gonna go through and just mop that up and dry it all in. All right, so we're starting off with solution finish. Now I talked about this earlier, this is an industry standard in terms of trim restoration. You can use this on pretty much all exterior trim, whether it's rough or maybe a little less than smooth, and you're gonna have great results. I've been using this stuff for years. It's literally game changing in terms of restoring trim semi-permanently. Now solution finish roughly lasts anywhere from 6 to 9 months. Now I say that kind of loosely because in certain situations, or depending on where you live, you may have a lot of UV exposure, you may have a lot of sunlight hitting you, so it may last about 6 months. However, if maybe you're not getting a ton of sunlight or it's during the winter months, you may get a lot longer out of it. But for something like this, it's not gonna see a whole lot of sun. It's going to see a lot of road grime and things like that, but if it's maintained, and these are maintained in the future, then this should last quite a long time. I think roughly I do one of these jobs probably every couple years on my own cars, and I get about a couple years out of them, and they look pretty dang good. So solution finish is great for used trim, such as I'm working with now, or used fender liners, but I would say that it can be used on pretty much everything. For new trim, solution finish does have a product called Over the Top, which is a great trim sealer. And you can use Over the Top on other trim or other fenders that have been restored with solution finish as well. So if I wanted to do that maybe in a couple days or in a week after I've done this, I can totally do that, and it's gonna seal it in even better. So solution finish, a little bit goes a long way. So I have my black applicator sponge here. I'm going to apply this to the sponge itself. And again, you don't need a lot. Less is kind of more. I just like to get a nice even blob on there. and I might even go up into the corner a little bit because I have some contours here on this fender liner that I'm gonna be working with. So taking that, I have my prep surface here, and I'm just gonna start in. So try to get into all the grooves, and this is already making a pretty significant difference. Holy smokes. Yeah, this is how it's supposed to look. Maybe even better than how it's supposed to look. All right, so we just finished up with the application of solution finish, and the results speak for themselves. This is back to a fresh looking OEM finish, but we have one more step. Solution finish does go on pretty thick, so it's important to knock it down with a towel afterwards, and that way you're not picking up any dust or anything like that, especially if you go for a drive right after. So I'm gonna take my towel here and then just start lightly wiping it down. This will knock off a little bit of the sheen, which is okay, and put it back to a nice matte to satin black finish. Gosh, that looks good. That looks really, really good. Cool, we are done here. So we're gonna move on to the rear now with Gtechniq C4. All right, so with anything Gtechniq, we usually recommend using their panel wipe product in preparation for any of their coatings. Now with C4, it's a little bit different because trim can be kind of finicky, especially with panel wipe. So I typically just use IPA again. So behind me here, we have this trim piece right here, as well as this trim piece right here that we're gonna be coating in C4. So spray a little bit of my IPA in here, spray it onto here, come around and start wiping it down. Now with this being more of a smooth plastic, I think this actually is going to benefit from C4 the most. C4 is a little bit better on smoother trim, really smooth trim I should say, in comparison to solution finish, as solution finish kind of needs some texture for it to grab onto. All right, so while we're waiting that IPA to flash off, we're gonna open up the C4 box here. And for this, we are gonna be using their applicators. Typically, I like using a bigger applicator for this, but C4 a little goes a long way with this, so we'll probably use one of theirs, and I am working with a smaller area. So pulling out our bottle. This is technically a permanent trim restorer as they market it. However, I would say on used trim, I wouldn't say it's permanent, but I would say it definitely lasts quite a few years. So C4 restorations on used trim, I've seen it last anywhere from 2 to 3 years, 3 years being the max. But for anything like this, I mean, it could last the life of this vehicle since it's on the underside. Now C4 is great because it's gonna have great water behavior. So if you're looking to repel water, this is also a fantastic option. Now the downside to C4, there is a downside, is that if you are using this on really old faded trim or really old used trim, it's going to restore that back to the way it should look. However, it's going to lock in a lot of those pores on that plastic, preventing future touch-ups of dressings, meaning that it's gonna seal it in and it could look pretty good for maybe a year, but you go, okay, I wanna darken it a little bit more, maybe I'll touch it up with solution finish or maybe another dressing. That solution finish, that dressing will not stick to it at all whatsoever. So you have to wait until the chemical, the ceramic, eventually breaks down in order to dress it again or even apply more of this. Anyways, we're gonna take our C4 here, crack this thing open. We're going to apply it to our applicator pad here. Give myself a nice little blob, and I'm gonna come right here to show you guys. So this, just Mr. Miyagi it on. I do like these applicators for this reason, as they're very easy to manipulate and get into nice little cracks and crevices. And right off the bat, I would say that C4 does have a nice luster to it. It is going to be knocked down with a towel, so it'll be much less than this, but in terms of application, it's easy to see where you've gone. That's looking pretty good. And I can tell I did a good job cleaning because there's my applicator pad. It's got a little bit of dirt on it, but nothing crazy. Putting on a little bit more C4 here. Again, make sure you're wearing gloves for this. Start applying it to this other trim piece. So So I'll finish this up and then I'll chime in. Once this is done, you guys can take a better look at what this looks like. All right, so C4 has been applied, so now it's time to knock it down. I'm gonna take a creature edgeless here. I'm just honestly using a bunch of extra used towels that we have lying around here. This job is not for new towels, by the way. If you have old, used, demoted towels, this is what this is for. Taking this, start knocking that down, and that feels pretty good. Very slick in comparison to the solution finish. In terms of the look, I really like the look. It's got a lot more sheen to it, in my opinion, but it's smooth, it's nice, feels really good. I can already kind of feel that this is gonna have some pretty good hydrophobic qualities to it. So, knocking that down, and voila, another product that can restore a fender liner back to an OEM finish. Now we have one product left, which is Koch Chemie PSS, and we're gonna knock that out on the front passenger side fender liner. Let's do it. All right, so last but not least, I'm sure you can guess what my prep step for this is going to be. More IPA, another Edgeless 365. Gonna spray my IPA into here. I do understand this is pretty dark in here, so I'm gonna try to get this done so Jimmy can get in here and get some good aftershots for you. Spray this nice and liberally, more into the towel, and then start wiping everything down. Now again, you can tell how good of a job you've done by looking at the towel. If the towel is clean, you know the product's gonna stick. All right, so now it's time for Koch Chemie's Plast Star, also known as PSS. Now, this is a dressing that pretty much surpassed all my expectations when I first found out about it a couple of years ago. It's not like a normal dressing, right? A typical water-based dressing usually does smell really nice. It's got a nice thickness to it, and we do sell several good ones here at the Rag Company. I like those for touch-up work, but for restoration, I think PSS is going to do a better job. Now, this product right here, a little goes a long way, and in terms of longevity, I mean, I'm seeing anywhere from a couple months to up to 6 months out of a PSS job. It really works well, and I think it's gonna be a true test in seeing how long it's gonna last on these fender liners here. I would guess at least 3 to 4 months, and I really don't think they're gonna go back to looking as bad as they were. So PSS is gonna be a pretty good option as well. I think that this is gonna be a great all-arounder for people. Somebody that doesn't wanna have to go through all the work of maybe the solution finish application or maybe the mess of that, or maybe they don't wanna commit to a ceramic coating. I think PSS is gonna be the best option. So for this right here, we're gonna crack that open, grab ourselves another fresh applicator. Again, this is a very liquidy product here. Gonna apply it universally to the pad and then start in right here and start working this in. You can't really use this product wrong. I mean, it's great on tires, it's great on other trim, great on fender liners, obviously, but it's very forgiving. That's the best way to put it. And already, this is making a pretty big world of difference. I would say in terms of look right off the bat, it's probably right in the middle between the look of Gtechniq C4 and solution finish. So there's a little bit more of a shine to it, but I think it's going to flatten out to a very OEM look. All right, so last step, can you guess it? Yes, I'm sure you can. We're gonna be knocking down the PSS here. And I know probably on camera you guys can't tell a whole lot. I would say in terms of look, I would say that C4 had the most sheen to it. I really do like the look of PSS. I think it's a very natural look to it. And I'm gonna talk about the look a little bit more once we head back to the bench, but easy application. You really can't screw this stuff up. And I think it's great for anybody that's a beginner as well. So let's head over to the bench, let's do a quick recap of how everything looks and give you my opinion on maybe which one I like best. And then you guys can try this for yourself. Guys, so that's gonna be a wrap on how to clean and restore plastic fender liners. I know it's a really unexciting topic, but I think that the results speak for themselves. Now, in terms of my favorite looking product out of all the restoration bits, I would say that solution finish takes the cake. I like the deep, dark look it provides, and I like knowing that I can touch it up more often as needed. Whereas C4 is fantastic as well, has a little bit more sheen to it. It is going to last quite some time, but again, with old plastic like this, I don't know if it's gonna last too long before I can touch it up again, but C4 is gonna be a great option for people with new cars. Now, PSS is gonna be the great all-arounder, the in-between between, something that can be touched up, something that can be used often, and if that's your boat, then float it. Can I say that? Does that work? Probably. So in a nutshell, this has been a fun time. I hope you guys learned something. I know it's not as exciting as maybe some other things in terms of detailing, but it's going to make a huge difference on your vehicle, and I promise you that. Now for the people with the carpeted fender liners, I'm sorry, we'll cover that in a future video. I understand that those can get really gross and really grimy, but maybe we'll have Levi do that one, and I'll just stick with this one. So hopefully you guys enjoy the process, hopefully you guys enjoy the results, and as always, if you like this kind of content, please make sure to give us a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below for more, and stay tuned for more videos right here at The Rag Company.